WNST evening celebrating the 1983 Baltimore Oriole World Champs. And, of course, we spent most of the day discussing the Orioles' new hiring, or maybe hiring, or we think it's the hiring of Mike Elias and maybe some others from the Astros. But business as usual in Owings Mills. Luke Jones joins us now from Owings Mills, where, Luke, I don't, I've been doing this a long time, bro, and I've, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and Sundays and, post games and pre games and all of that stuff with the team. I don't ever remember anything as weird as Wednesday for a tone and not having a quarterback around. And I thought every part of it is really, really weird. And I don't bet on football, as you know. I wouldn't bet on the Ravens right now. And maybe they prove me wrong. Maybe they rattle off 5 wins and rally around Lamar Jackson but I'm not feeling it right now. I'm not feeling the tone beginning with Harbaugh. And if any of you want to waste 9 minutes of your life, go to the buyatoyota.com audio vault and give that a go from Wednesday. But, Luke, times are tough in Owings Mills, and I don't, not that it should be comfortable in any way, but it's uncomfortably uncomfortable for me.
Well, and that's a fair assessment. I don't know if I feel quite as strongly about what I heard on Wednesday, but I do think it was pretty clear that they're tight, they're concerned. There's definitely a sense of, if this doesn't go well Sunday, uh-oh. And there's already some uh-oh, and there should be when you've lost 3 in a row and you play as uninspired football as they played against Carolina, and to a lesser degree, but still not exactly an impressive showing against the Pittsburgh Steelers in a home game. You go into the bye week, you come back, that's typically the time you're rejuvenated, you've rested mentally, you've rested physically, and your starting quarterback's hurt. And I know a lot of people are almost welcoming that because they're ready to usher in the Lamar Jackson era. And look, if you're excited to see Lamar Jackson play, that's a fair assessment. I watched the guy play at Louisville. I know how talented he is, but he hasn't been starting for a reason. And I'm not sure if he's the one who's playing on Sunday. I'm not sure how well that's going to go for the Ravens and for Lamar Jackson. So all of those different elements kind of thrown into the bowl, it did feel like a locker room that was tight, not really as loose as you'd like to see coming off the bye week, not as confident as you'd like to see knowing you're facing a Bengals team that has been an utter disaster the last couple weeks, just fired their defensive coordinator. But that said, Nestor, I could go back over the last 6 or 7 years. I've been in that locker room virtually every single day that media access is available.
And that's a fact. That's a fact. You're there all the time. I fly in and out 2 or 3 times a week in various capacities, but I don't attend the Monday John Harbaugh, we feel good about ourselves, or we feel down about ourselves. And I think Harbaugh's tone with the media is Harbaugh's tone with the fans, and I think it comes back to bite him. But look, Brian's our partner here, and I still feel like Brian's one of the most magnanimous individuals that I've met, on the planet, quite frankly, in my walks of doing this for 27 years on the radio. And I don't know that John can even help himself. John's emotions and John's paranoia and all of that sort of bubbles to the surface when he behaves like he's behaving this week. And I just, and it's fine. If that's his tone, that's good. If that's what he wants to project, that's good. But it's unnecessary, and I don't think it helps him win on Sunday. I don't think it helps him keep his job or lose. It might help him lose his job more than keep his job. I don't know, because I think Steve's tenor about all of this is which way the customers want to go. Steve is very, very, very attuned to how the public feels. The white fans, the black fans, the rich fans, the military fans, the jock fans, the media fans. Steve hears all of that. And, I think Steve sees John's press conference as well and probably thinks that's not helping get the Purple Army down to the stadium on Sunday. That's the way I felt about it, because I walked away from it. I literally walked away from it. I'm like, come on, man. Come on. Yeah, I'm 50 years old. It's cold out here. Then I got thrown out of the building for being in the building a minute and a half too early. I mean, it's just – and it was freezing out there. And I I don't get it. I don't get it. You want to rally the community because you think the team can go win this week, then rally the community and say you think the team can go win this week and tell me how we're going to win with Lamar Jackson, or tell me how we're going to win with Joe Flacco, or tell me how we're going to win with RG3. But if you're going to sit up there and deflect everything because you're mad that you're under fire, I just didn't think it. I don't think it's a good tone to set. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm writing Purple Rain 3 12 weeks from now, but I don't think so.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think on Monday, John Harbaugh was much better with the media, and not even with the media, because it's not as though he was over-the-top rude on Wednesday. He just didn't want to get into the quarterback thing whatsoever. Didn't even want to entertain,
Well, then we're not talking about the football game, man. I don't know what else to say.
But you also know anything he says he feels could be something that helps Cincinnati prepare for Lamar Jackson or prepare for RG3 or prepare for Joe Flacco.
I get it. I get it, but it's not that hard to just say, all these guys will be ready. Here are their strengths. This is what RG3 can do. This is what. Okay, fine.
And to John Harbaugh, he said it on Monday, and he was asked about the quarterback situation, and he's going to. And as media, we have to ask that question, because why the hell else are we there if we're not going to ask about the quarterback, even though Harbaugh doesn't want us to ask that. But Monday, he addressed it to the degree he was going to. He acknowledged that Joe had a hip injury. He said, if Joe is healthy enough to play, he will be the one to play. We don't really know right now. And to be truthful, the sense I get is they don't really know for sure.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I don't
think this is a case where Joe Flacco's lying in a hospital bed and has no chance whatsoever of playing. The fact that he has missed practice time this week certainly doesn't bode well for his status. But Monday was Harbaugh's way of addressing it, and then he felt he was going to shut it down. He could have been better about it. I agree with that. At the same time, I've also seen him be much worse with media at various times over the years. So it is what it is, but...
As have I, but let me say this. It's not after the media's reporting of the mutual parting of the ways. And if you're pissed at Lock and 4, be pissed at Lock and 4 or whatever. And, and then there's the random local media idiots who ask stupid questions to sort of egg them on a little bit, which I don't really see any value in that. I get in my car, I drive out, you get in your car, you drive out. We're all there. The fans are tuned in on the Facebook Live or whatever. We just want to hear and talk about the football game a little bit. And for 10 minutes, 3 times a week, it's really, I find it fascinating that can be that hard to do, and to just talk about the realities of the situation, which is obvious to everybody. You and I are going to sit here and talk about it, so let's talk about it. What is the reality of all of this, that Lamar Jackson plays 4 quarters as the starting quarterback? And why is there such a hub around RG3? Like, why would RG3 be the starting quarterback? I'm trying to reason all of this out, and I think there are great talking points this week, especially because it could be any of the 3 guys on Sunday, and this is what Marvin has to deal with in Cincinnati right now.
Sure. And let me just finish one part, my thought as far as being in the locker room. There have been so many times I've thought, man, this is a really bad locker room right now. And I don't mean bad like the players are being jerks or anything, just that it's tight. And then they go out and play great football. On the flip side, there have been times where it's been upbeat, and you think, wow, these guys really feels like there's some good mojo going here, and they get their ass kicked on Sunday. So that being said, your question about the quarterback, there is so much unknown with this. If Joe Flacco's healthy enough to play, then John Harbaugh says he'll play. But that said, you have a quarterback who in the past, when he has not been 100%, like the first half of last season, like 2013 when he had an MCL sprain and tried to play against the Patriots late in the year, like the Jets game in 2016, whether it was truly a shoulder like the Ravens said, or as some of us wondered, did he have a concussion the previous week? He missed practice time and played poorly that day. The 2009 postseason, we all remember. So you're clearly not going to get a 100% version of Joe Flacco. So the question is, how close to 100% could he be if he's a consideration to play? If he doesn't practice all week, then I think you have your answer as far as him. But as it relates to Lamar Jackson, the assumption is he's going to play. I think the Ravens have said all the right things about him. I think you design a game plan that clearly centers around the running game much more, and they have run the ball much more effectively with him in the game as opposed to, quote, their traditional offense. But there is still a lot of unknown there. I mean, this is a guy who's only thrown, 11, 12 passes all year. We haven't seen him start a game since the preseason. And let's face it, that was a mixed bag. He played better later in the preseason, but earlier in the preseason, it was pretty ugly, if you recall. And he was going.
I think they would have grave concerns with him throwing the ball 30 times on Sunday against the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, he was going up against second and third team defenses. Now,
and by the way, this is the worst defense over the last 3 weeks, like historically bad. All the Bengals guys I've had on all week, like the last 3 games, they've given up more yards than like anybody in the history of the sport or something. It's crazy.
Right. I mean, I think it was over the last 4 games. I mean, they've set an NFL record, at least going back to, I want to say, the Super Bowl era.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, it's been, so from that standpoint, it's a positive.
That's only back to Bart Starr.
From that standpoint, it's a positive whoever's going to be out there, but there's just so much unknown with Jackson. And look, anyone who's going to sit here and say he can't go out there and play decent football for them, or is going to sit here and say he's an immediate upgrade over Joe Flacco, and I've heard both of those sentiments from lots of people, primarily fans on Twitter.
Well, there's
and
no
Facebook.
way you can say he's an upgrade over Flacco because you don't know what he is.
And that's the thing. We have no idea. Short of him going out there and playing like Deshaun Watson last year, who was a sensation and who was absolutely the exception to the norm, we have no idea. My guess is, and this is my educated guess based on what I've seen from Jackson being in the game and what impact it's had on the Ravens, and based on what I've seen watching him throughout the spring and summer, and understanding that we get to watch very little of practice during the regular season, us guys that are out there on a daily basis. My guess is their running game will be better with Lamar Jackson. And my guess is their passing game will take a substantial step back in the short term, meaning these next 7 games. I'm not talking at all about next year or the big picture for him. So your question is, are you going to gain enough with the running game to offset potential loss with the passing game? And that's the question that's really tough to figure out.
Well, that indicates that you need to have sustained drives by running the football.
Sure.
And boy, oh boy, right? I mean, I find that hard to believe unless it's the Lamar show. If it's Lamar rushing 12 times for 114 yards because he breaks off a 38-yard, breaks off a 26-yard, and, completes a couple of third down slants or something, and somehow the Ravens win 23-21 because they play defense differently this week and A.J. Green's not there. I mean, I can hear all of that. I don't think Cincinnati's very good. I don't think it's going to take some Herculean effort to beat this defense this week, and especially the turmoil they have there. And Hugh Jackson's going to be back on the sidelines again, right? I'll hear all of that, and I think they can win this week. But why are we standing at RG3's locker, Luke?
Well, a couple things with that. First, to be totally honest with you, he's a better interview than Lamar Jackson right now, and I that sounds shallow, but if you're a media looking for insight, you get more from RG3 talking about Lamar Jackson than,
sure.
And let me be clear about that. I don't want to pick on a 21-year-old kid, a 21-year-old young man. There are plenty of Ravens players who went on to be really good media-savvy interview types, and they were bad as rookies. So that's part of it.
Torrey
Part
Smith.
of it is RG3 has been an integral member of the kind of the developmental team for Jackson. He, along with James Urban, have put in a lot of time with Jackson post-practice, since going all the way back to OTAs, working with him, giving him extra tutelage, giving him extra drills to work on. And, that was part of the idea of signing Robert Griffin III. Now, they didn't know for sure they were going to draft Jackson, but signing him was a clear sign that, in hindsight being 2020, that they were interested in taking him because of similar skill set and some of the pitfalls that Griffin went through. they're hoping that he has been a good mentor for Jackson, and I think he has been by all accounts.
Well, the only way to find out whether you can play is for him to play, but this is really not a great – it's a great circumstance in that it's Cincinnati and this defense hasn't been very good. It's a horrendous circumstance that you're out on the plank. Literally, the coach is out on the plank as well, and your offensive line isn't right, and your running game's never been right. And, there's just – and your defense certainly hasn't been right to – keep you in the game, the way you need to be. AJ Green not being there, I guess there's a lot of little things we can put up on the board and say, here's something we like about the Ravens or the Bengals that makes this a very interesting game, and I think an interesting Vegas game this week. But being around the team, I think there's a real level of discomfort here that's not the good kind of discomfort that maybe I've seen around teams that win a lot.
Yeah, and hey, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. And to finish my thought on Griffin, is there a possibility? And I don't know this. I'm throwing this out there hypothetically speaking. Is there a possibility? And this is why we said RG3 was on the team to begin with, right? If Joe Flacco would go down for a game or two, that he would be the one to start and Lamar Jackson would stay in his place. Now, is that still the case in Week 11? I don't know.
If it is, it sure is an indictment of Lamar Jackson.
And I was just going to say that. It doesn't speak too well for where he is right now. Now, I also want to be very clear about this. And over the bye week, I even found an article that I believe it was a scouting kind of football website went through, and they looked at some of these advanced stats and adjusted yards per attempt and basically ways to measure quarterback play. And they went back and looked at every first-year quarterback, not talking Patrick Mahomes in his second year or a first-year starter, talking about a rookie quarterback. They went through the list of all of them that have played significant snaps as a rookie. And virtually all of them, almost all of them, were frankly pretty bad to terrible. And you can find maybe about 7 or 8 who were actually good as rookies. So I don't think it's impossible. My expectation continues to be that it will be Lamar Jackson if Flacco does not play. But at the same time, if there's a sense from the brain trust that Lamar is not quite ready to be the guy that's playing 75 snaps on Sunday, then I wouldn't be completely stunned if Robert Griffin is the quarterback. If he is, then, yeah, there's going to be some pointing of fingers of, okay, well, where is he as a quarterback? And then I think the big picture question becomes, if you don't trust him to start games right now, are you really prepared to move on from Joe Flacco in the offseason and hand the reins over to Lamar at that point? So, again, these are all hypotheticals, and I'm not going to buffalo you. I don't really have a great read on this other than the fact that Flacco is legitimately hurt, is getting treatment. They are still hoping that he can log a little bit of practice time at the end of the week. And
yeah, I think it just needs to be made clear to the idiots, in the fan base that, like, he is still by far their best quarterback. Like, love him, hate him, dislike the mobility, dislike the 2 bad passes a game that seem to have been coming along more lately than before. And I hear all the noise behind me and this disdain for him and all of that. Be careful what you wish for. I went to dinner with Stoney Case 2 weeks ago, and I remember, the 7 quarterbacks that came after him. Literally, right?
Yeah, but I also have to say at this point, I think the writing's on the wall, and it's the fact that they took a quarterback in the first round.
Well, we're way closer to the end than the beginning. Sure. But if you want to play a playoff game, you'll play in January. Joe Flacco's got to be upright and playing at 85% this week. And if they squeak by and Lamar runs around and plays well, then we got a real controversy, right? Like, then they got Oakland next week. Well, let's let Joe rest another week and we can go beat Oakland because they stink too. Anybody can beat Oakland. Yeah. And now we're going to Atlanta and Joe's okay,
But Lamar's played well, yeah.
Well, if Lamar doesn't play well and he plays on Sunday, the season's over anyway. If it's 4-6, it's 4-6, right?
Right. I mean, and let's. I mean, I guess part of it is what is the expectation for him. I mean, I think he does give them a different element to their running game. If you tell me right now they're going to run the ball well against the Bengals if he's starting, I'm not going to be surprised by that because it's not the same kind of running game as it is when Flacco's in there because you're running the RPOs, you're running zone reads. He is keeping it on design runs. There is, the run defense can't play the same way where, like Flacco, when he hands the ball or goes to hand the ball to Alex Collins or Buck Allen or Gus Edwards or Ty Montgomery, no one's expecting Joe to keep it. So there's not going to be that element. Every time Lamar Jackson goes to hand to a running back, there's a possibility he could pull the ball back.
Oh, my God, you got linebackers and safeties freezing. No doubt about it, right?
So I'm fully on board with the idea that their running game's better with Lamar Jackson, but my question is, how much better? Are they going to run for 5.8 yards per carry and completely gash a team, and Jackson only has to throw 20 times then, or 18 times then I think that's a really great formula for winning, at least against Cincinnati for 1 week. But if it's a case where you run it and you're okay running the ball, let's say you run it and you average 4.4, 4.5 yards per carry, which, by the way, is way better than the Ravens have run the ball this year, to be clear. But is that going to be so productive that it drives your entire offense? I'm skeptical of that. And then I feel, okay, he's going to have to make some plays with his arm, and that's where we don't know. He made a ton of plays with his arm in college. I think a lot of people who maybe don't follow college football closely don't realize how much he was a passer in college. But it's college compared to the pros, and we could go back and go through so many quarterbacks who were legendary on the collegiate level, and they couldn't hack it at the NFL level. And I'm not saying Lamar Jackson can't hack it. I'm saying I don't know. And based on what we've seen to this point, and understanding that we've seen very little of his behind-the-scenes development from September on, I think for me, it's difficult to be. I certainly am not buying the idea that he gives the Ravens a better chance to win than Joe Flacco at the moment. Maybe that's different a year from now or 2 years from now. I mean, you hope he's becomes a star. But in the meantime, can they make it work? And if Flacco can't play this week, it's a moot point. There's no controversy. Then it's either Lamar Jackson or RG3. And if it's RG3, then people are going to be really down on Jackson. But
but they need to win the football game.
Yeah, you need to try to figure it out. So, that's where don't completely dismiss the idea of Griffin being the quarterback because I think they're probably, he's not going to give you as much as a runner as Jackson can, although he still can move. But the sentiment is there would be more confidence in him in the pocket if it comes down to a game where you have to throw. So, who knows, Nestor? Maybe the answer is Lamar Jackson starts, and if the Ravens, they get a punt blocked or, a kick return or something like that, and suddenly they find themselves down 10, 13 points, maybe at that point you say, well, RG3 is the better passer right now. We have no choice, but we have to go to him, and that throws even more controversy into the loop because you bench your rookie in his first NFL start. So
that's a hell of an indictment to say I have a quarterback who I'm afraid that he would throw the football.
Well, I'm not saying afraid to throw it, but if he has to throw it 40 times,
that means you're afraid to throw it.
I think that. But I don't think
this is a National Football League. You got to throw the football. Though. You know what I mean?
But what teams are playing rookie quarterbacks trying to win? I mean, that just that's very rare. So I don't think that's an indictment as much as your desperation of trying to win. I mean,
they're all trying
to win with a rookie quarterback. Now, sometimes it happens by accident, but it happens by accident.
Yeah,
but no team goes into a season.
Dak Prescott was an accident, right?
No one thought the 2008 Ravens, because Joe Flacco
was an
play,
accident.
No one thought they were going to go 11-5 and make it to the AFC Championship. I think people were thinking, can Flacco be okay for a couple weeks and then kind of see where Troy Smith is at that point.
Well, remember when we used to say game manager? I haven't used that. How many years has it been since we've used game manager? Not even toward like Alex Smith anymore do we say game manager, right? But that's what the perception was. I don't think Lamar Jackson's a game manager. I think he's a run around and have somebody try to catch him and find a hole and make him be faster than everybody else. That's a completely different thing than what you're going to ask RG3 to do if he has to come in the game down 13 points.
Yeah, and that's why you don't let it be. You try to run the ball. You set up good high percentage throws for him. Let him move, throw on the move. You do those kind of things. I think you're hoping you can. I think that's a case where you're hoping you can manage the game a little bit more and be in a position where you're playing from a position of strength where you do have a lead and you aren't forcing him to throw the ball 45 times. Any rookie quarterback that has to throw the ball 45 times, you're setting yourself up to lose. Go back and look at Peyton Manning's numbers his rookie year. That's just one example. Go back and look at John Elway's numbers his rookie year. You're talking about Hall of Fame quarterbacks there, and they stunk their rookie year. It's really tough to do. As much as this has become an offensive age and points-driven and passing game-driven NFL today, it's still really difficult to play the quarterback position. So that's where, if it is Jackson, I think people need to temper expectations, but it's a conflicted feeling because you have to win the football game. So we'll see. And I'll quote John Harbaugh, who said we'll see about 5 or 6 different times on Monday when asked about the quarterback position. Again, my assumption is we see Jackson if Flacco cannot play, but I don't think it's completely impossible that Griffin ends up being the quarterback, and that would speak to not who Lamar Jackson's going to be next year or 2 years from now,
but where we are right now.
It would speak to where he is right now. And hey, let's face it, Joe Flacco hasn't played great football the last 4 or 5 weeks, and he's not the only one, to be very clear. But if they felt Lamar was this absolute wonderkin prodigy who was ready to be a superstar at this point in time, then you make the change. My goodness, make the change then. But I don't think that's what this is. For people that had the conspiracy theories about this being a fake injury or anything like that, Flacco's banged up, and it doesn't mean that it's something that's going to keep him out for the year or anything like that. But you do question then if he's not close to 100%, even if he can walk and go out there and play like he's done in the past when he's been banged up, you do wonder if it's a lesser version of him. Might they kind of take advantage of the element of surprise and so much unknown with Jackson and kind of use that effect to help them on Sunday? That might work for Week 11, but beyond that, there's certainly a lot more unknown. But who knows? I'm beyond the playoff ramifications part and the uncertain, the unsettling part of that part of this conversation. I am really looking forward to seeing Lamar Jackson start a game at some point, whether it's Sunday, whether it's Week 15.
All they got to do is lose 1 or 2 more, and he'll be playing against the Chargers Christmas weekend, and I can decide whether I want to go out there and play out the string in a soccer stadium watching preseason games for next year and the end of the Harbaugh era, or whether I want to stay home with my family on Christmas. I want the season to be extended. Do I think Lamar can be a big part of helping them beat the team on? He'll have to be, right? Because even if Flacco's out there half a hip, they'll be counting on Lamar Jackson more. I would think that he'll be running around more with the ball and running half of the Lamar Jackson offense if Flacco can go out there and wing it around 20, 22 times. Or maybe he can, or maybe they dress all three. There's so many possibilities, and I guess that does bring us full circle back to the press conferences and what is said this week and all that. You and I have talked about it for 30 minutes and all of these possibilities. It's not that hard to chase your tail for 6 minutes and talk about it because it is interesting. It's interesting to the fans, and it would be interesting to have some sort of insight into these players that we haven't seen play a little bit. That's all. I don't.
Right.
And I think the perception is RG3 has looked really good, has been an impressive cat out there the last 10 weeks in running scout and being a big brother to Lamar and all that, that I don't think they don't think he wouldn't give him a chance to win. I think if he runs out under center on Sunday, that would make me feel better about their chances of winning because it would tell me that they're where they are on Lamar and they really need to win, and RG3's gotten better. I've heard a lot of that around there, too.
Yeah, I'll say this, though, and this is what I wrote earlier in the week at WNST.net. You start looking at all the different combinations of things that can happen for this team and eliminate winning a Super Bowl and eliminate Lamar Jackson coming in and looking like an absolute superstar overnight. Eliminate those two very unlikely scenarios at this point. What is the best case scenario for the Ravens otherwise? You know, is it to go in? Is it to win and make the playoffs and you sneak in as the number 6 seed and you don't win in the first round, you don't make a deep run, you're 9-7, you manage to win one of the 3 road games? You know, is that really enough to move the meter in Steve Bisciotti's mind that you aren't moving on from John Harbaugh and or Joe Flacco? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Does that really change things that drastically for you? On the flip side, and you just said it, you know, you just talked about Robert Griffin III coming in and maybe giving them a better chance in Jackson. And I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know because I don't get to watch these guys at practice. And
I think they know, and with their season on the line, if Lamar's out there running around, it would, with their season on the line, with Harbaugh on the plank, all the coaching staff on the plank, right, including Urban, all of these guys would be blown out of here if Harbaugh and they don't win this year, right? So I would just – if Lamar is out there and running around, it really is a vote of confidence for him that, quite frankly, I don't think you or me or anybody that spends any time around there believes – no matter what they say this week, I don't think they really believe that they think they can go out there and win football games with him right now. If that's what they show me on Sunday, then they really have been playing coy.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also think, all right, I'll buy into the fact that Robert Griffin III might give them a better chance. But let's also remember, RG3 hasn't done anything in this league in about 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're talking about someone who was out of the NFL last year. Let's remember that. We're talking about someone who was with the Browns 2 years ago and couldn't stay healthy, and when he didn't exactly play all that well. So we're not talking about. We're not even talking about a Matt Schaub type who was at least, at that point when he was with the Ravens, even though I didn't like that signing, if you remember, but he was at least a year or two removed from still being a pretty good quarterback in the NFL. So, I don't see all the love for RG3 that I sometimes see for people. I mean, people are putting a lot of stock into a solid preseason. It's preseason football. I mean, it's fake, but I guess my thought on if it would be Griffin on Sunday, and let's say Flacco is going to miss this game, and let's say he has to miss the Oakland game, and they decide to go with Griffin, well, that tells you that they think that he gives them a better chance to win than Lamar Jackson, but that also doesn't make me feel very, very good about the big picture for this team then, because this late in the season, Lamar Jackson's not even truly your second-best quarterback in that regard. So part of me, is thinking about the big picture here, thinking about what's really the best outcome for the Ravens over these final 7 weeks. And, Griffin playing over Lamar Jackson, it doesn't fit that. I think you want to see Flacco play well. You want to see him be healthy, because even if you're in the camp that they're going to trade him in the offseason, a healthy, more productive version of him has more trade value. You want to see Lamar Jackson, in whatever playing time he gets, take advantage of it and play well and show signs and show enough signs that you think he's on the right track and not look like someone who's a complete disaster back there, which rookie quarterbacks can look that way a lot of times. Jared Goff looked really terrible 2 years ago. So that's a reminder to pump the brakes on whatever you see. But I don't know. If we're seeing Robert Griffin III starting on Sunday, one, I'm not overly confident in him either. And two, it does create a little more concern as far as where Jackson is with his.
Wait, dude, we're not going to be overly confident no matter who it is, right?
Right. I'm not. And
they have one in a month.
You're completely right about that. I'm not confident in Joe Flacco right now because I don't think he's going to be close to 100%. And he wasn't playing all that well before the bye week anyway. So
yeah, in a mobile version of Joe Flacco with an offensive line that sort of contributed to getting him that way.
Right.
I don't. And no running game. I don't know that's a great chance to win either. I keep going back to the fact that, hey, have you seen the Bengals play defense lately? They fired the defensive coordinator.
And that's what I keep coming back to as well. The Bengals have been a disaster. As much as we're talking about the Ravens, they just, they fire Terrell Austin. Marvin Lewis brings back Hugh Jackson to help out with the defense, which Marvin's taken over, and he hasn't called defense in quite some time. As much as I have great affection for what he did here in Baltimore years and years ago, that's a lot of unknown right there. And I do want to go back to one point you made because you nailed it because I hadn't really mentioned that. But no matter who's under center, whether it's Flacco, whether if it's Lamar Jackson, then it's out him anyway, or even if it would be RG3, we're going to see more Lamar Jackson. There's no question about that. Even if Flacco plays, I would not be surprised to see Lamar for upwards of 20, 25 plays. Maybe he plays an entire series or two. Who knows? Because it's not going to be a 100% version of Joe. And Harbaugh even said at the beginning of the bye week that he would like to see Jackson on the field even more, whether you agree with that or not. So we're going to see plenty of Lamar Jackson. It's just going to be a case of, is he starting and is he the man, or is he going to be in more of a relief role? And maybe you equate it to him being more of a long reliever at times on Sunday, whether it's for Flacco, whether it's for Robert Griffin III. Again, my assumption, my expectation continues to be that it will be Lamar if Joe doesn't play, but it's hard to say because, again, everyone's going to be positive, and people are positive, coaches are positive, players are positive about what they've seen, but I'll go back to one thing that I think a lot of people glossed over. 2 weeks ago, the morning of that Pittsburgh game, Ian Rappaport of NFL Network put out the report about Harbaugh being on the hot seat. It was buried, and it wasn't the lead, but I thought it was a substantial element of the report. Towards the bottom of that report, it was said there was frustration about Lamar Jackson's development. So you take that for what it is. That I assume that was one source who told Rappaport that. That doesn't mean that what that person speaks is gospel, but I do find it funny the folks in town that, as you mentioned, some people so eager to run Flacco out of town and ready to start the Lamar Jackson era. I haven't heard too many people quote that in terms of this whole debate, this whole discussion. So it's interesting. I don't think it's interesting in a good way for the Ravens, but boy, things could get ugly here potentially. I mean, it could be fine. Whether Joe plays, maybe Jackson plays.
Go win a game, right? I mean,
go win a game.
Beyond all of this stuff with Harbaugh and the locker room and all that, they need to go win a football game this week, and I sense that. But I also sense that there's a tightness there that doesn't feel like good tight to me, and maybe they'll go prove me wrong on Sunday. How about that?
Agreed. And like I said, I've been in locker rooms where the vibe was great, and they went out and they laid an egg and played poorly. And I've been in locker rooms similar to this one on Wednesday where you wonder about the vibe. You wonder how guys are feeling. You wonder, and this is a perfect example, coming off the bye week, how are guys feeling? Is it, all right, ready to go back to work, ready to get the bad taste of the last 3 losses out of my mouth? We're healthier, we're feeling good, we made some adjustments during the bye week, let's go. Or is it, we got to go back to the facility, I really enjoyed the bye week, it hasn't been fun the last few weeks, Joe's banged up, Ronnie Stanley's still not 100%. James Hurst still isn't practicing. Tony Jefferson's banged up. We still have the month of December. Is it that behind closed doors, or guys thinking that in their heads? And time will tell. Put it this way. As much as the Bengals have been a problem, if the Ravens don't come to play on Sunday, it could get ugly, even without A.J. Green. I don't expect that. I think the Ravens are going to get off the mat and get it done on Sunday, but boy, there are a lot of moving parts. Boy, there is a lot of unknown. Lamar Jackson and beyond that for this team. And we've spent so much time talking about the offense. How about the defense, which has gotten all the resources over the last 5 or 6 years? How about this defense getting back on track? And everyone likes to cite all these stats, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone, but number one defense and yada, yada, yada. Well, they're not number one anymore, and we've seen them play quite poorly over the last, at various points over the last 3 weeks, albeit against some good offenses. But, hey, you want to get to where you want to go? You have uncertainty at the quarterback position. Defense, if I'm John Harbaugh, I'm kind of calling out my defense a little bit this week and saying, hey, this team was supposed to be built on having a great defense. We're dealing with some adversity on the offensive side of the ball right now. We need you to step up. So as much as we talk about Joe or Lamar or RG3, let's see the defense get back to a position where it was a little bit earlier in the season, playing better football. If that doesn't happen, if that doesn't get remedied over these next couple of weeks, they're not going to have a shot come the month of December.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke. He is in Owings Mills. I was in Owings Mills. We will be in downtown Baltimore on Sunday, as will Marvin Lewis and the Cincinnati Bengals. Tough times in Owings Mills. A lot of folks ask me, who's sponsoring the show these days? And, I could go through the whole list of all of them, so I'm going to do that right now. So I want to thank Strategic Factory for sponsoring us up in Owings Mills. Buffalo Wild Wings in Bel Air, where we will be on the 28th of the month watching the Terps and Virginia play basketball. The LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute. I had Dr. Craig Bennett on this week. You can find that in the BuyItToyota.com audio vault. Patrick's in Essex. We're going to be doing a Raven Live show down there a little later on in the month after Thanksgiving. You'll be hearing more about that. The Modell Lyric and our dear friends. I'm still chasing down Mike Love this week to give him some love for the Beach Boys show on December 2nd. Of course, Kansas is there next Saturday night. Sporticulture, our dear friends, that put the flowers in the studio that my cat loves to smell, and sometimes maybe get a little closer than smelling to the pansy. Sporticulture.com. Charles Nusinoff and Sons. For everyone's budget, you can visit them out at charlesnusinoff.com. They're fixing my wife's wedding ring right now. Lee Tessier and the Lee Tessier team selling my condo. You can find them out at leetessier.com. And, of course, Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. And, of course, the fried chicken and the Western fries. And make sure you're downloading the app and using that when you are buying your gas. And you'll get your Western fries and your chicken for free. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.